Okay, so first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming and running through this. Um, right now, my screen is small, so if you're seeing this and yours is small too, the way that you fix that is go to the top of the screen and you should see fit to screen. Let me first, okay, yeah. So I'm full screen and now I go to the top and it says more, and then there's a drop down that says fit to window. And when I do that, now Kay's screen is nice and big and I can see everything. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna pull our picture here over to the other side, which may or may not be in recording still. And Kay, I'm gonna turn it over to you to run a degree eval because I wanna make sure everybody knows how to do that before we talk about new things in the program.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Carol. So I've logged into my CWI just as you would as students. Mine looks a little bit different because I'm a faculty member, but I think you'll be able to follow along fairly easily. You're going to go to your toolkit, which in your case may be the only thing that shows up on the right-hand side. And my toolkit for students should look very similar to yours. This is, of course, the same tool that you use for registration. We're going to go to Academic Planning and select Program Evaluation. When you select yours, it should come up already reflecting the elementary education or the secondary education degrees that you're seeking. However, if it does show something different, as mine does, because I was a non-degree seeking student, you can choose the Change My Program and select the degree. The other advantage to this model is that you can confirm which calendar year you'll be reviewing. So I often encourage students, even if the correct program shows up here, that they use the drop-down box to select it again. And that's going to bring us to a page that asks for the catalog year. For the most part, I always recommend that students choose the most current catalog for their degree audit. However, you are eligible to graduate under the requirements of any catalog year during which you took at least one class that applies to your program. So for some of you, you may be able to choose 2011's catalog. I would recommend that you choose the most current because all of the changes that we've made so far have most certainly been to students' advantage. When you submit, it will go out and review all of the classes that are in our database about you. That includes any class that you've completed at CWI, any class that you've had transferred in and already had evaluated, and courses that you may be currently enrolled in or pre-registered for coming semesters. Beginning information confirms that you have your student up. I've never seen it pull the wrong student, but if it looks really funny, double check that your name is showing up there. Also confirm the degree, especially if you're using the drop-down box. It can be really easy to select the wrong one, and the catalog year. You can also confirm your email address, and if you've been assigned an advisor, it will reflect that here.
Hey, Kay.
Yes.
Before you go on the catalog part, some students get confused with that. And so I just want to touch on quickly that there's a form where you can change your catalog. So that's where you can pick any catalog that represents a year you've taken a class, right?
Correct.
Okay, so there's a form to change your catalog once you decide which catalog to be in. And then 2013, 2014, or 2014, 2015, that's going to have a more flexible degree, right? Are those the years?
Correct.
Okay, so in 2013 or newer catalogs, you're not going to have the PHYE 210 requirement or the music 233 requirement. So if anyone is in a lower catalog and you're still seeing those requirements come up on your degree eval, it just means you're in an older catalog. Do I have that right, Kay?
You do. And students who haven't officially changed it using the form that you've referenced, when they apply for graduation, they are asked to confirm the catalog year at that time. So it's not a huge deal if they haven't changed their catalog year, except potentially for financial aid reasons. As long as at graduation, when they apply for graduation, they choose the correct catalog year at that time.
Okay, great. Thanks for that clarification. I think it's confusing when, I mean, for me, it's not because I've been in education so long. And I remember my catalog still for my undergraduate degree. I lived and died by it. At that time, we couldn't change those, so it's really nice that you can change. All right, with that clarified, please continue.
Excellent. Great clarification. Thank you. I want to see if I can make this all fit on one screen. There we go. So is that too small for you to see? Excellent. Okay. So as we move down, the first box that you come to are general requirements for just an AA degree. They don't necessarily provide the detail that you need, but it's good to make sure that this box also reflects that you're complete. So your institutional credits, you have to have the last 15 with us in order to get a degree with us. If for some reason you transfer in a class at the last semester, maybe BSU, for example, offered Math 257 and you took it with them in your last semester, if you have a total of 50 credits with CWI, we can use that to replace the last 15 requirement. So this can be a little bit confusing. There are a couple exceptions, but for most of you, you'll want to make sure that your last 15 credits are with us. You have to have at least a 2.0 to graduate. And then those next two lines, the overall credits and overall GPA, those may be different because they reflect any transferred in credits. So the first two lines are just CWI, the next two would be all credits that we're able to count towards your degree. And then we get into the more specific requirements. The first box is your core or general ed requirements. In the coming years, this title will change, but the concept is the same. These are the group of classes that are the breadth of education that span a wide range of topics and areas that help you to be a well-rounded, educated person. And there are specific courses that qualify in these areas. So make sure to read this list here if you're missing any classes, because as we grow, we add more and more courses that may appear to be ones that would count here, but double check and make sure they're on the list. For example, Psych 201. It's psychology. It may feel like it should be general ed, but it's not. So always confirm that it's on the list. And then it will plug in the courses that you've taken. So I've not taken COM 101 at CWI, so it reflects that I still need to take that class. As we move forward, there may be additional options for communications classes. So again, that may be a change if you're sticking with us for another year that you'll want to be mindful of. English 101 and 102. Again, as we move forward, written communication may have additional options, but all of the catalogs up to now will require 101 and 102. I have not taken them, so again, they still reflect one course needed. The elementary ed degree requires that you take either art or music. I took music 100, so it's reflected there. And when I've taken the class, you'll see that it includes the semester, the grade, and the number of credits awarded. The number of credits is important to keep in mind if you've transferred in classes, because especially if they were from a quarter system, they may not reflect the same number of credits, and that could impact your overall number of credits and requirements for your degree. But for anything that you take at CWI, this of course is really not matter because it's the same as what we require. Humanities, again, to the list above for options. You need an additional class in this area. Music and art are one humanities course, and then you need a second one. We recommend the literature series because most of our four-year partners prefer that. Foreign language is also a good choice, particularly if you're going for bilingual education, of course. The core math class is Math 143 College Algebra. Because it's a required class, they spell it out here, different from, say, English 101, which you could potentially skip if you had tested into English 102. But if it's required, it'll show that here. Don't be confused, though. I still haven't taken it. It still says that I need it, unlike this where I've completed it. 2 science courses. We recommend that you take one from life sciences and one from physical sciences. Most of our four-year partners will require that differentiation. CWI does not. So if you were to take 2 biology classes, we would count that for you. But when you move on, you may be required to take an additional science. So if you haven't already taken 2 of the same area, we encourage you again to think about life science and physical science.
It's okay, just to clarify, I usually tell students take biology with a lab and then basically anything else. Is that what you're thinking?
We now have some agricultural science classes that qualify as a life science and a core class, but most of our students, you're right, will take biology as their life science.
It seems like, and tell me if you're getting a different impression from the four-year partners, but they want a bio and something else, right? Are
They
they
do. Some
good
of them
on
even
that?
specifically require chemistry or physics as the something else. But yes, they expect biology as the life science for almost all of our students.
Okay, so I tend to encourage biology plus something else.
And we have a lot more options in biology, so it's a good fit all the way around.
Okay, but the new ag ones are going to be the same as a bio?
They're going to be a life science, yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Currently, we require United States History 1, History 111. So that's been spelled out, and it's still needed on this degree audit. And then a second social science. Now, this is an area where you have to be careful. I've taken History 112, which is an approved social science. However, I do have to have two different disciplines in social science. And these would not both qualify because they're the same discipline. So if you have a degree audit that looks like this, make sure that you have an additional social science that's in a different discipline, like psychology or sociology or economics. And then because you have to have a minimum of 36 credits of core or general education, we have an additional area of 4 elective credits in Gen Ed. So again, anything from this list of approved courses up here will qualify, and be really mindful of what your four-year partner might want, or the areas where you may be seeking an endorsement. For example, history, political science, foreign language, science. Those areas may accept at your four-year college additional credits from our area, and pulling those in this Gen Ed elective section would be a great way to do that.
Okay, and that, would you go up on that again and what you were just at? Last time I talked to BSU, they were always wanting Poli-Sci 101, English Literature for Humanities, and Poli-Sci 101 or Psych 101 for social science. Are you still hearing the same?
I think Poli-Sci has gotten a little less of the attraction now as we try to minimize the total number of credits required for students both at the first 2 years and at the four-year partners.
Okay.
Psych 101 is a requirement of Psych 201, which is a required course. So I would certainly lean students towards taking Psych 101.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Just my own personal gap of knowledge, lack of knowledge.
Well, and it's so important because Psych 101 by itself is not specifically a requirement, but because it's a requirement for a class that's a requirement, it might as well be required, and yet we don't make that very clear. So I appreciate that.
Cool, thanks.
All right, so the major requirements are the courses that are specific to your degree. And again, we've pulled up elementary ed. If you're in a secondary ed, this list will look a little different. The core classes, however, are the same. Education 201 with 202, Education 204, 205, 215, and 290. The math for elementary teachers, both 1 and 2, 157 and 257, would not be required in the secondary levels. However, they'll be replaced by content area classes. And then Phys Ed 155. And in this catalog year, Physical Ed 155 is required for anybody taking an AA degree. So while we've got it listed as a major requirement, which it is for elementary ed, if you take this class, it's going to plug into any AA that you take. So in some ways, it's almost like a core class. Carol, do you want to say anything about the sequencing of these courses?
Sure. So Kay and I have been teaching these for a couple years now, and I would recommend 201, 202 as your very first ed class, because I'll have at least 2 to 3 students a semester who take that and realize they don't want to be teachers. So I always encourage 201, 202 first. I would recommend not more than 2 ed classes at a time. So I had students that take 201, 202, 204, and 205, and they die because there's too much reading. Kay, have you had that same experience when they take 3?
Every semester we have at least one student who does that, and yeah, it's definitely not advisable.
Yeah. So I would say 201, 202, and 204 are fine together. 201, 202, and 205 are okay together. And then 201, 202, and 215 are okay together. I think 205 would be something I'd take later. So in a perfect world, I would do it in the order that it's on there, which is the numerical order. Funny how that worked out, but yeah, having taught them all, that is pretty much the order I would go with. I think you could take 215 with 201 and 202 pretty easily. Most students are coming in with a lot of tech skills, so that tends to be not as challenging. If technology is something that is very challenging for you, then I wouldn't pair it up. But I also think the skills you learn in 215 are helpful in other classes. So I guess maybe I would say 201, 202, 215, and then the rest of the sequence. What do you think, Kay?
I agree. Absolutely. Just do them in the order that they're presented with the exception of 215. I'd love to see students take that much sooner than they tend to.
Yeah.
It is not a prerequisite of 290. And so oftentimes students take 215 with 290. And I think they would be far better served if they already had those skills before they jump into their electronic portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the revamp of it, of 215. Scott Straub is teaching it this semester. He's made a lot of changes to the curriculum that I think make it more challenging, more applicable to actually teaching in the classroom, and also prepare you better for making that ed portfolio in 290. So there's that. That's all I have on it.
I'll also add that because our numbers are not yet large enough to support it, we're only able to offer Math 157 in the fall and Math 257 in the spring. Students do have options, so if that sequencing doesn't work for your particular plan, make sure to talk to either Carol or I or to Scott, and we can help you identify those other potential options. But if possible, when you're developing your plan of attack for accomplishing the degree, be aware that Math 157 is offered in the fall and 257 in the spring. I'll also make a moment to speak about summer semester. It's our goal to offer Education 215 in the summer because it does not require any observation hours. Otherwise, really none of the other education classes are available in the summer, either because they offer or require observation hours, or there would just be far too few students needing the class in that semester. So if you like to go to summer school and you want to keep that in mind, Ed 215 should be planned for summer semester.
And Kay, what about 290? Are you running that year round?
I am not. I may, if there was a request for someone who absolutely had to have it in the summer, offer to do it more as an independent study, but it's preferred with the current environment that we would run it only in the fall and the spring. Okay,
so 215 is going to be your only summer option. And then just to touch on observation hours, to give you a heads up. And Kay, are these changing? Should I go through this? Or?
They are not changing at this time. They wouldn't change until 2017.
Okay. 201 and 202 are co-requisites. So you take those together, same semester. Although 201 doesn't have observation hours, 202 has 30 observation hours because that's your field experience class. So those two classes together have a 30-hour field place observation. So you're in a K-12 classroom for 30 hours over the course of the semester. And although that sounds like a lot, I will tell you, if you talk to students who have taken the class, they will tell you it goes a lot faster than you think. And most students keep observing or keep participating in that class through the remainder of the semester and sometimes longer because it's great networking and it's great experience. So I know 30 sounds like a lot, but you'll be surprised. 204 has 10 hours of observation required, and 205 has 15 hours of observation required. So you can see when students take those first 4 classes together, they are required to take 30 plus 10 plus 15. That's a lot of hours spread over a lot of classes, and that's part of why they die when they try to cram all those classes together in the same semester. Okay, I think that's it on that.
I'm glad you talked about the observation hours because there has been some confusion. People have been asking me because they think you had to do 20 hours minimum for the 205.
I don't think so. Kay, is it still 15 for 205?
Yeah, I'm curious where they're getting that. Brittany, if you happen to hear anybody mention that again, if you'd ask them to talk to me about that, that'd be helpful. But it's 15.
Yeah, I think they're from one of your online courses because we have the 157 together.
Well, again, if you could have them tell me where they're seeing that so that I can correct it if there is an error or help them understand where there was confusion.
Okay, will do.
But
Cool.
20 is great. Like Carol said, many students do extra hours.
Yeah. Okay, are you going to go down a little bit further? Because I have questions on this whole major requirements section, but go ahead and talk about electives.
Okay. So one of the things that was changed, as Carol mentioned, in the 2013 catalog year and continued into 2014-15 was the elective option. And there is a range of credits allowed now for this degree, which is great. Currently, the minimum for an AA is 64 credits, and so that is the minimum number. And currently, we can transfer up to 70 credits from a 2-year college to a 4-year institution. And so for the purposes of financial aid, our degree can be anywhere from 64 to 70 credits. And again, depending on what your endorsement area might be, the more credits you can take that will count at your 4-year partner, the better off you are, because of course CWI has a lesser price than any of your 4-year partners will. The confusion, unfortunately, comes in an electronic audit like this, where it's a computer and whatever we've programmed it to be able to do is all that it can do. And so you'll see here in the text of electives, it says complete 5 to 11 credits to fulfill credit requirement. And so that's up to you as the student to decide, do I want to take the minimum of 64, which might be a good idea depending on your circumstances, or do I want to max out what I can at this lesser price and with the smaller class sizes, etc., and take up to 70 credits. So that's where this range comes from. It gets confusing because this box where it says 11 credits needed can't be a range of credits. This is a fill in the blank, how many credits total. And so to err on the side of ensuring that students have enough credits, we've chosen to list the 11 here in this box. But it really is a range, and it is 5 to 11 depending on what makes the most sense for you as a student. And these credits need to come from this list. This list was chosen based on what our 4-year partners will accept from us. So a math endorsement would take all of those math credits, and that's why those are listed. The literature endorsements, like those literature classes, as Carol's mentioned, history, and a lot of the social science classes count. We've also included the 2 classes that Carol mentioned that were formerly requirements, Music 233 and Phys Ed 210, specifically for those students who may have already taken them with us, but also because they're still valuable courses for you to take, Music 233 being music methods for teachers and Phys Ed 210 being an introduction to physical education. Both have opportunity to develop lesson plans and to work in the schools and see that in action. So certainly recommend them, but they're no longer required courses. What kind of questions might you have had about this, Carol?
Well, I think understanding now that the bottom part, the electives, only has to be 5 to 11 instead of, I think that partially clears it up. Anything that's listed under major requirements, this major requirements are only going to be those 9 courses, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that's where my confusion was, is I wasn't, yeah, I got it now. I think I got it now.
I have a question.
I don't know why it was so confusing before, but it was. But,
Okay.
On
Yes,
the Phys Ed 210, is it semester sensitive?
Phys Ed 210?
Yeah, because it's not offered in the spring.
That's a great question. So we don't offer it at all anymore. Again, we wanted to keep it on the list for anybody who may have already completed it. You also could potentially take it at another institution and transfer it back and have it count. But we are not offering Physical Ed 210.
Oh, okay. That makes sense why it wasn't there.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Great clarification. I'll also add that there are some circumstances where a different class that's not on this list might be appropriate. Potentially you're transferring to a school outside of Idaho, or you're doing an endorsement that maybe is new and wasn't reflected in this list. Anytime you feel you have a really valid argument for a class, that you would want to have counted as an elective, please come and talk to me. Many times we can approve that as an exception and have that class count. So I'm not sure we have ASL on here. And if you're going into special education or something like that, the American Sign Language class makes a lot of sense. And in fact is required at some of the institutions that you may transfer to. So please realize that this list is our best guidance at the time that we created this degree. But if you have a logical reason to think something else is also a good choice, please let me know.
I know, I wish ASL counted. I have so many of those classes.
My guess is you probably have enough credits in other areas, Brittany, that you're covered anyway. But if you want to talk to me about that, let me know. And then finally, the computer literacy requirement is here. For our ed students, this is no difficulty because Ed 215 meets the requirement. So all of our students are going to meet this. But there are other ways to do it. You'll see that I've passed the CSA. I passed it when there were 5 elements. Now there are only 4 that are required. And then you will also see CISA 101 as a way that some of you have met this requirement. The way that our Ed 215 class works, I would recommend that you continue to take CISA 101 if you feel like you don't have strong computer skills. It'll make it much easier for you to be successful in Education 215. But for the requirement, your Ed 215 class will meet the requirement. And then just to go through the entire process so there's no boxes on here that might be confusing for you. The residency requirement is really more of an internal benefit. For students, it makes very little difference. But again, as I mentioned at the start, the last 15 credits must be from CWI. And so this reflects your most current classes. And it'll continue to change as you continue to enroll. And when you pre-register, you'll see that it's those classes that you haven't even taken yet that end up on this list. It really is for a registrar's office to quickly be able to see that your last 15 credits were with us. And then the final boxes are just reference to any of the footnotes and asterisks that may be listed on your degree. So I only have one, the non-course equivalency, and that came up here in my computer literacy requirement. Many of you will see PR for pre-registered, IP for in progress, and TE for transfer equivalency. There may be additional ones, and if you do see them on there, remember to scroll to the bottom for those notes. Any questions?
That was really helpful. Thank you. We need to do this every year just to be current on stuff. Hi, Doug. Nice of you to join us. I have you on that screen over there. Doug, are you awake? Doug? Okay. Maybe he has his audio turned down. Hey, do you want to talk a little bit about upcoming changes, or are you what's on your plate? Are you talking about changes for next year's catalog?
Yes, I would be happy to.
Okay.
So not to confuse you, but we are in a state of pretty constant change at CWI right now, and really in the entire state of Idaho. So these changes are going to impact you here, but they'll also carry over because our four-year partners are doing a lot of changing right now as well. There's a general education reform effort going on in the state. And one of the changes that you'll see, and this will start in the 2015 catalog year, is a change from the idea of general ed to a new language, very similar. We're going to be calling our core classes GEM, G-E-M courses. And that stands for General Education Matriculation. And that M is actually significant because the state has really put a lot of time and energy in the last 2 years, and it'll continue probably all through next year as we start that first year of the process, to really confirm that a course taken at any of the state institutions noted as a GEM course will matriculate, which means transfer and count for credit, to another school in the state. And so you'll see a change in the language to GEM. You'll also see a slight change in the language. For example, humanities will become humanistic ways of knowing. There may even be an extra word in there, but I believe it's humanistic ways of knowing. The sciences will be scientific ways of knowing. The social sciences become social and behavioral ways of knowing. And then, as I mentioned a little bit when I went through this, there are also some skill-based GEM courses. One will be communication in oral form, and that's where the COM 101 class will fit, but there will be new courses that may also count as an oral communications class. The English 101 and 102 will be written communication, and there will potentially be new courses that may count as written communication. So those are the changes that are taking place as a state and will be impacted with that in our 2015 fall catalog. There are also some specific changes happening to the elementary ed degree that were approved at CSI and as such will be transferred over to CWI. And that is the removal of a specific requirement for art or music. Instead, students will be required to simply take 2 courses from the humanistic ways of knowing. Now, we will still highly recommend that you choose art or music, but you'll now also be able to add theater into that list. Since many of our students transfer to BSU, it's important to know that BSU requires that you take an artistic, humanistic ways of knowing class, and then also a more traditional humanities style course. So for anybody transferring to BSU, even though the art or music requirement is going away from our elementary ed degree, we still highly recommend that you take art, music, or theater to meet BSU's requirements. And then for your second course, stick with those literature classes for BSU primarily, although again, the foreign language is a good option. Literature in this list is any of the preferred 200 level classes. So this English 257, 258, 267, 268, 277, and 278 are the recommended literature courses. Also be aware that as we've made this shift as a state, the list of approved courses will be vastly different. Every single course that we offer has had to go through the process of being considered for a GEM course. And in some cases, the list that you see here, these courses may not have made it through the GEM process. So be very, very mindful if you want to switch catalog years to the 2015 to review the new list. Again, this is an opportunity where it may not be to a student's advantage to make this change. And if you have any questions about this, please contact Carol, Doug, Scott, or myself because we'll walk through it with you. If, for example, you took Japanese 101 from another school, because I don't know that we've offered it for several semesters, it probably is not going to be a GEM course next year. But if you graduate under the current catalog, 2014, we'll still be able to count it because you can graduate under a previous catalog. So a lot is changing and it may be confusing, so please ask for assistance as you need it. The sciences will be the same. Again, it might be a slightly different list, but we'll still encourage you to take a life science and a physical science. We are removing the History 111 requirement, and it will be 2 social sciences, except it'll be social and behavioral ways of knowing classes. But again, just because we're making this change to our degree, your 4-year partner may still require it. NNU, for example, requires 2 history classes. If you're going to Western Governors University, you actually end up needing 3 history classes. So be very, very mindful that you're working with that 4-year partner requirement to build your degree with us. By removing this, we've made it even more flexible for students, but also put a lot more responsibility on students' shoulders. And then the final change that is happening for the 2015 catalog is in the area of major electives, if you will. This area we discussed where it's 5 to 11 credits. The state has said that we need to get students through faster if possible. And one of the ways that they've encouraged that is to reduce the total number of credits for an AA from 64 to 60. And so we have followed suit with that in our elementary ed degree. It'll still be a range of credits, but where it used to be 64 to 70 credits, in the 2015 catalog it will be 60 to 70 credits. So where it says 5 to 11, it'll actually say 1 to 11. And again, it's just really important for students to think through their own schedule and their own needs to determine whether they would be more benefited by taking 60 credits with us and kind of getting through it faster, or taking full advantage of the community college and getting all 70 credits. So be really careful as students are going through this process, because reducing the specific requirements gives you a lot more flexibility, but does put a lot more responsibility on the student's shoulder. And I'll end with the computer literacy requirement. This has not yet been finalized. In fact, I'll know more in about 45 minutes, but there is the potential that the computer literacy requirement will be removed. Again, we will still require Education 215, so it doesn't make a significant difference for ed students, but if you hear other students talking about that potential, more to come on that area. So clear as mud, right?
No, actually, I think it's pretty good. I'm almost inclined to tell students who've already started to stay either in the 13-14 catalog or the 14-15 catalog, and then my new ones coming in next fall to keep them in that one or beyond.
I think that's probably very good general advice. Again, there will always be a few exceptions, but I would agree that that's a great starting place.
Yeah, seems like it's a lot of changes. So, okay, it'll be interesting to see how things articulate for those students who do choose to jump that gap of going from Gen Ed to Gem, like how this program aligns courses, and hopefully that all works out right. That's a little,
Agreed.
yeah, that's a little tenuous. That's why I think it would be better to stay in the no further than this year. Okay, I don't have any questions. Brittany, do you have any? Doug?
No, I don't have any either. Did you want to do the secondary education to see the course requirement differences?
I'm kind of thinking that's so diverse that students who are doing secondary ed should come and either see Kay or I or Doug or Scott Straub. We are the 4 full-time eds, right? Okay.
Yes.
And so we do advising. The other education faculty are part-time, and so they generally don't do advising. They teach their courses. And for the very specific reason of it changes so often, they shouldn't be required to try to keep up. We have a hard enough time trying to keep up. Doug, are you there?
I didn't have sound for a while, but now it's up.
Awesome. Do you have any questions for Kay?
Well, considering most of it was just like an icon moving around and scrolling up and down pages, I don't have any questions right now.
Well, you're in luck because we're going to send the link out so you can rewatch the whole 45 minutes.
Awesome.
Awesome. I know. Okay. So that is exactly what I had hoped to cover. I think that was a huge amount of information. I love that we recorded this because if a student or a faculty is confused, we can rewind it and watch it again. So I think that was awesome. And I actually made a note to do this every fall. Okay.
Just make a new one.
Yeah, because it changes. We might even need to do it every semester. I don't know. So I have nothing more. That was exactly what I had hoped for. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right. I will stop the recording here. And if everybody would hang on one sec, I have a couple of things.